and retail challenges and opportunities.
Well, I'll tell you, today is Sunday,
I know.
and this sure seems like a Monday crowd. I mean, people are everywhere, which is great for the NRF, great for retailers, great for the vendors, all of them spent their time and money and energy to come here.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't here, every session has been jam-packed. The floor is incredibly crowded, and it's wonderful to see. And we're all here really to kind of not only talk about what's happening in the state of retail, but also what's happening in the state of technology.
Yeah, and it's something that a lot of people are talking about today because there's so much technology that retailers are having to embrace today because consumers are demanding it.
Well, that's, I think, I mean, to me, what was so interesting, right, is if you look back over the past 3 years, so we go back to like March of 20, we saw a significant change in what retailers were focusing on, how they were thinking about spending. And, and you fast forward to today and you look at it from a VMware perspective, where are people spending versus where you would expect them to be?
Well, you bring a very good point because during the pandemic, they were like, we're sort of freezing our spending right now. So now we're seeing retailers that are coming out and realizing that all the technologies that need to be in the stores, I'm not a big fan of saying store of the future because the future of retailers now. So retailers are like, what do I need to do today to prepare for tomorrow? To, what needs to be done? And the only way they can do that is bringing all those technologies, whether it's self-service, whether it's loss prevention, whether it's IoT, all those different technologies that are needed out there today that consumers like us, and we're all consumers, we sort of demand.
The other interesting thing that we're starting to see is this idea around like CapEx versus OpEx and thinking about kind of what they're buying and the ROI and the payback period. And I have to say, I've covered retail a long time as a Wall Street analyst and now as the CEO of Coresight, and we've not really had that conversation in quite some time. So how do you feel that they are analyzing, right, their tech spend? And as a result, are they spending differently?
Well, they're spending differently because of the vendors. A lot of the vendors are coming out and saying, hey, we're subscription based. So the days of we're going to sign a 5-year deal for $100 million and slowly absorb it are over. It's like, what'd you do last month? Here's your bill. Or here's what you did in the last 6 months. So, even VMware, very heavy in the subscription. A lot of people out there today, a lot of the technologies that are in this building, subscription based. So I think that's making retailers realize they're not that they're being forced into it. They're realizing that that's what the market is bringing up.
But it's also easier, right, to make a decision in some ways around a SaaS product, right, versus something that is a 3 to 5 year, right? And I mean, from a Wall Street perspective, right, we would always be like the minute, I won't use any vendor's names, but the minute you're like, we're doing this to your project, you're like, no, don't do that again, right? We need like something sooner. Also, that we want to be able to understand and measure along the way.
Well, that's a very good point because it's almost like, okay, this is a 3-year deal. Well, I've got 3 years to do it, but you really need to do it today. So let's do a subscription. And you know what? Sometimes people make the wrong decisions. After 6 months, they say, we need to move in a different direction, a better direction, a more efficient direction. They're not, but I'm locked into this 5-year deal.
Well, that's I think the key too. And I think that because the consumer is changing so rapidly. I mean, you mentioned loss prevention, which, I don't think 3 years ago we were talking about that much, but now I would tell you it's near the top of everybody's list.
Well, it's interesting. I was walking the floor and I went by the Sensormatic booth. It's huge. They have all these, they're offering all these technologies. My background being an ex-retailer, I worked in the distribution centers. Sensormatic means those white tags that we used to put on the clothes. So, they've gone from best loss prevention to everything from the self-checkouts that we work on that, tie into the camera system to make sure what you scanned is what's in your bag. Is it a banana or a bottle of rum? So all that technology is out there. So loss prevention, I think, is in a new era. And I think it's only going to get bigger and better.
What's new at VMware?
What's new at VMware is the capability that we have an industry-specific solution, two actually. One is virtual POS, which is allowing retailers today to leverage the investment that they've made on all that equipment in the store and doing that on a virtualized platform. But even better, the fact that we have a product called Edge Compute Stack. I lovingly call it Retail Edge, because retailers today are realizing I need that power and compute at the edge if I'm going to do self-checkout, if I'm going to do loss prevention, if I'm going to do all these technologies that consumers are demanding. I like to say the old days of running a phone line to a store to suck down POS data, those days are over. I can't rely on sending it back to the data center and having it come back. I need it there. I need it now. And so retailers are taking a hard look at how do I expand all those different technologies that are out there that are all being sold in this building as we speak. But how do I have the power and compute and the network to be able to provide the services for the retailers?
Well, I actually think something you brought that's very important is the consumer now, right? We are, in many cases, we're very comfortable sharing our data. And so because of that, there is the expectation, though, of personalization of the experience. And that I think is, and hey, we're happy to share our data if we're going to get a personalized, kind of experience. And in some cases, right, we're seeing more and more, right, retailers are actually paying consumers for their data. So there's a very interesting, right, we've got the whole build of the CDPs.
Yep.
If I am the consumer and I am sharing my data, what do I expect? And this whole kind of at the edge compute, how does that help the retailer better deliver a personalized experience?
Well, first off, they're getting the true data of what you've been purchasing. So I like to say, okay, I'm in a grocery store, I'm a vegetarian. Why are you sending me notifications about a meat sale? Or I don't drink. Why are you sending me your wine sale? So if I'm going to give you my data, do something with it that's personalized to me. I mean, there were several, and I believe you spoke in one of them at Shop Talk last year about the personalization of retail. That's what they need to do. Now, I'll give you an example. Every time I walk into the Fifth Avenue Nike store, the innovation store, the second I walk in, because they're using SD-WAN technologies from VMware, my phone wakes up because I have the Nike app. I'll say, hey, Ed, welcome to the Fifth Avenue Nike Innovation Store. Why don't you go up on floor 3? This is where the men's stuff is. You might be interested in that. And by the way, if you don't want to check out, scan it, because they already have my credit card number. Go over and verify it, put it in the bag, and walk out. I'm like, okay, they told me what to buy. They told me how easy it's going to be. And they said, hi, Ed. I mean, customer for life.
Well, I think that, what's the challenge that's happened for retailers is that they do know you, right, if you're part of their loyalty program upon checkout.
Yep.
But they don't know you, quote unquote, when you check in, right, when you walk through the door. And I think that, the great example you just provided, like that's a game changer because also too, like, let's say if I bought a blazer and I need like the suit pants, right, and they're on sale, right, they can start to, right, real time hey, those pants that you were thinking about, right, they're now
accessorizing my purchases.
That is,
I mean, people have been talking about accessorizing purchases for years. Like if they bought this, suggest this. If they're looking at this, they might be interested in that. A lot of people are doing it. I mean, a lot of people, in small batches are doing it, but I don't think anybody has done that personalization at the level that we can say, oh, all retailers are doing it. I mean, perfect example, that group that you were with yesterday at the Super Saturday, that were talking about all these things that retailers are doing. I forget her name. I think it was Christine. Goes, don't let him fool you. All retail isn't doing this yet. So that tells me there's opportunities out there to do this.
We did some work together in terms of looking at. I was surprised at how much retailers are expecting to spend this year, right? Because
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, no.
What are you talking about?
It works so well.
And the bad news there is,
I know. Yeah. And where we had, majority, almost 40%, so they're going to be up almost 10% on spend. That's a big number. Where do you think, if you were to prioritize the 3 buckets, where do you think people are spending?
Well, I think a lot of people are looking at their legacy systems. So, I look at that and, perfect example is, I talk to retailers about they want to be able to virtualize their POS because their system, their POS equipment is 20 years old, 15 years old. One actually honestly said 40 years old. So I need to be able, they're taking a look at that. How do I take what I'm doing today and efficiently and financially sound, bring everything back up? But at the same time, I don't want to get into the whole, well, they should be doing containers and Kubernetes. And there's so many, let's play buzzword bingo here. Yeah. But I really think that retailers today need to really take a hard look at what's legacy, what's sitting on a multiple year deal that they could probably convert over to subscription, and then be able to really take a look at what their customers are demanding. Because, there's a lot of people hate self-checkout. A lot of people love self-checkout. I love it. I use it all the time. So, there's that type of thing. There's, oh my gosh, the amount of vendors that are downstairs with shelf labeling now.
It's amazing.
It's explosive. And I can remember 3 years ago, I was down in South America. I believe I was in Santiago, and I was talking to the CIO. He's like, Ed, that's just too expensive. He says for that region, I can hire 2 people with 2 clipboards, and by the end of the day, they've updated the rest of the store. But it's now dropping down to the point. It's like RFID tags. Oh, I can't spend $1 to each one. Now, what are they, under a penny or something like that? And so I think you're going to see that, because customers are going to want to be able to know exactly what the price is, so it matches what I checked out with. And then the retailer wants to realize I need to adjust because this isn't selling, or it's selling too well. I need to be able to snap my fingers at corporate in a centralized location, and knowing that these 10 stores, because of that region, because maybe it's super hot, I'm going to do a sale on water. I want to know that the snap of a finger, all the prices are changed in the POS system and on the shelf labeling to help the consumer. Because let's face it, it's all about the consumer.
So I want to know, how far are we away? Because this is like, these are the things we go and talk to retailers, right? The thing about the store in the future, right? So
future retails now.
Exactly. Yeah. I heard that, but but so this idea, right? So they know who I am. I walk in the store. I think that there's this whole idea almost of journey mapping. And if you start to think about this whole, what we're seeing in retail media, that, right, a lot of vendors would be willing to pay. Okay, so I go and I pick up my crackers, and then there's a message, right, from the digital shelf label, which is, right, the more interactive. Oh, Deborah, right, we'll give you X% off this, kind of fizzy water that you might like. This idea that we're starting to see in real time, right, on the shelf, may or may not be on our phone, but that you're starting to kind of almost have this journey map for you throughout the store. And if you think about, right, the ability to get into that back corner or wherever it might be, that to me is really what I've always thought of with, kind of DSLs and digital shelf labels, where the future was, but the future may be now.
The future is now. And, let's start talking about advanced personalization. Personalization is great. I know what you buy, I know what I can suggest, but to your point, that's advanced. You're maybe it's Labor Day. Well, if you're getting hot dogs, maybe you need hot dog buns. If you're getting soda, maybe you need, water. I mean, a lot of people do that stuff, but I think to that point, electronically, suggesting it electronically, you may or may not do it, but it might come up and say, hey, like you just said, for these crackers, there's some fizzy water. So I think, I talked to a lot of retailers, and the 4 areas that they focus on is, eliminating the friction. I used to say friction before it was such an overused word. Eliminating the friction of the consumer to consume, eliminating the friction of the employee, the frontline employee, to help that consumer to consume. And then all at the same time, let's talk about how we can help that frontline worker, that employee. And then at the same time, digital, for the supply chain. We all know about the supply chain. So I think if, I just focused on all those areas and I didn't mention any technology, because that's what I like talking to retailers about, how we can be foundational on what we do. And we see that they're going to be spending 68% more on this stuff to help them be transformational. And I think that's what I'm hoping that people realize what VMware does with the global retail customers we have, because everybody pretty much is our customer, that we're trying to help them, the tools they have to meet the transformation that they end up having to do.
All right, since we're talking about grocery, I want to leave you with this question. So we're seeing this kind of movement to the retailization of healthcare.
Yes.
And I've always thought with food, right? Food is medicine, right? I mean, it's really, you are what you eat. All the kind of the old adage is true. And so as we start to think about that, and you look at many of the large retailers actually do have clinics, or kind of some kind of association with healthcare. Where do you think we are right now, and where is that going? Because to me, it is fascinating the impact that we can have on people's health, well-being and longevity.
Well, I think a lot of people are doing it. The big guys, like you said, either they go out and buy a healthcare provider, or they're buying the doctors that they can put into their stores. I think they're just scratching the surface, but I think in a very short period of time, I don't want to say 3 years or 5 years, it's going to be everywhere. Because I think you're going to see, I'm going to go to my local retailer. I'm going to go to the bank, because we didn't even touch on financial services and how that's in there. But I'm also going to go get my wellness checkup. And as I'm in there, as I'm getting older, or I'm there with my kids, it's like, hey, you have pre-diabetes. By the way, here's a diet we want you on. And by the way, since you're in the store today, all the purchases that we suggest based on your new diet, you're 20% off, because we want you to get on this as soon as possible. Or I have my kids with me, and you know what? Whatever your son's been eating, he needs to be eating more healthier. Here's some discounting to allow them to be able to, help them. So to your point, I think you're going to be seeing that a lot more, and it's going to be very prevalent. All the retailers want to be destination, whatever that retailer is. And I think we're going to be seeing that all over the place. And I look forward to the increased spending in technology based on the Coresight research to help them get that done.
All right, next time we do this, we got to dive into financial services.
No,
that's all for today. And thank you so much. I mean, truly, you are a beacon of insights in the retail industry. We're very lucky to have you. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, thank you for having me. And I am amazed and I'm stunned. Like I said, bucket list. I'm here with you.
This is great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.